All of us carry inside each of us a unique and untold story of life, waiting to be unraveled and told. Every experience makes memories, and memories are the echoes of our past and the silent narrators of our life stories. The stories are the fascinating time capsules that transport us to back in time. The narrative of Bartolomeo Capitanio, the founders of Sisters of Charity, too, is a small but fascinating story enacted in a small town in a short time. This is the story of an extraordinarily great-hearted and an incredibly passionate girl who loved God and her neighbor immeasurably. Her deep concern for the suffering humanity paved a way for the foundation of the Institute of Sisters of Charity in response to the demands of her time. Dear friends, let us sit back for a while and witness the story of a loving, self-motivated, dynamic and vibrant Bartolomeo Capitanio, the founders of Sisters of Charity.
Bartolomeo's hometown Lovere was one of the most lovely and beautiful little towns in Milan, surrounded by exotic scenes of nature and delightful natural setting. Lovere is laced with stupendous mountains, full of valleys and peaks extending horizontally from the slopes of Cala Hills to the backs of Lake Iseo, also called Sebino. The serene waters of Lake Sebino, surrounded by magnificent mountains, create a delightful ambience, and Lovere, surrounded by this scenic setting, earned the title of the Pearl of Sebino. It formed a natural harbor. The convergence of the Camonica Valley and the Cavallina Valley along the significant routes became a hub for commerce since ancient times. From its hills, people of Lovere extracted gypsum and iron minerals, while along the coast, factories were in operation. One of the most flourishing handicrafts in 15th century was wool industry, which manufactured scarlet cloth and exported to Germany and Hungary. The people of Lovere enjoyed a beautiful period of peace and prosperity that lasted for 3 centuries under the Republic of Venice until the French army of Napoleon invaded it. The most lovely and beautiful Lovere became a great victim of the misfortune. The French Revolution began in 1789, raged across Italy with a great commotion of political and social upheavals. With the coming of Napoleon, the lands became theaters of harsh battles between the French and the Austrians. There were wars without end. The armies massacred one another and trampled on the streets. The Italians had to bury the dead by hundreds and thousands without questioning why. Northern Italy became a province of their great empire, and to maintain and consolidate they needed money and men. So they crushed cities and towns with heavy taxes and imposed enlistment of men in masses to increase the number of troops. Napoleon kept Pope Pius VI prisoner. Religious orders were attacked, and the monasteries and convents were taken over and confiscated all the ecclesiastical goods to fill the republic banks, which were drained by the continual war, and the nuns and friars were thrown out on the streets. The friary of Capuchins were razed to the ground, and men were burnt alive. The desperation lasted longer than 7 years and was devastating to all the religious orders. The resultant great misery led to rebellion by the farmers all over the country, and the riots rose against the Napoleonic regime. The French emperor lost to Austrians, and Bonaparte, the viceroy, left Italy. Though the society emerged from French Revolution and Napoleonic Wars, The restorative trends promoted by the Congress of Vienna, the country was under deep political, economic, and cultural changes which affected greatly the life of the people. Just in those hard hit and distressed times, a devastating famine, an outbreak of smallpox and typhoid fever, and other pestilences led to the widespread of massacre of enormous number of people. Anguish and terror reigned everywhere. In the heart of the summer of 1816, there was a very heavy fall of snow on the mountains. Floods covered the fields, ruining the harvest. There was great misery. Lovere, in the course of a few weeks, was invaded by beggars. They came down in crowds from the villages, dragging one another in search of food. Hunger was on the increase. Some lived on herbs, but many died of starvation, and some were found dead with fingers between their teeth.
It was at such hard times and in that atmosphere, greatly exasperated by misery, Bartholomew was born in Lovere on 13th of January 1807 to Joseph Modesto Capitanio and Catherine Kenosi. Bartholomew was 9 years old when her village, already so much tried by incessant wars, misery, countless deaths, was struck with an unexpected, distressing famine. Her mother, Catherine Kenosi, a very kind and large-hearted gentle lady, ran a bakery. In their house too, food ran short. Attracted by the fame of her mother's kind heart, beggars knocked at their door in great numbers. Unfortunately, Catherine was forced to send away some with empty hands. Bartholomew saw all that extreme poverty, hunger, and pain, and her heart was rending to see the misery, and suffered silently, and her mute eyes seemed to question, "Why, God? Why all this intense misery, deaths, and suffering?" One could question God like Job, but on the contrary, Bartholomew understood that the questions of suffering, human despair, and death had the possibility of finding the answer only in love. It was during these times of untold misery, suffering, and pain, the seed of charity was sown in the heart of Bartholomew by her pious, virtuous, and large-hearted mother, who deprived herself of the food available in their home to feed the hungry poor who knocked at their door constantly. Bartholomew learned from her mother infinite patience, kindness, sweetness, and great spirit of generosity. Notwithstanding the stormy times, Bartholomew, a vibrant and vivacious girl, grew up unsoiled, self-motivated, and enlightened by a clear intellect. In the chaos into which Italy had fallen after Napoleonic invasion and successive wars in which French, Austrians, and British were engaged, the schools were the first to suffer the consequences of continual wars and invasion. After 7 years, in 1817, the convent of St. Clare reopened its doors and were asked by the Austrian authorities to open a boarding school for the girls of Lovere. Catherine Kenosi, knowing that her daughter was highly intelligent, smart, determined, and gifted with many talents, decided to send her daughter to the boarding school opened by St. Clare's in the town to continue her high school on completion of elementary school. Bartholomew was 11 years old. After 6 years of schooling at St. Clare's boarding, Bartholomew returned home as a first teacher of the town. As a full-fledged teacher and having exceptional capacity for communication, vast knowledge, and intense formation, in 1825 she started a school in Lovere at the advice of Don Borbolio and Don Bosio. Bartholomew taught with passion. Through her brilliant instrumentality, the oratories for boys and girls and the Association of St. Aloysius were launched in the parish. She put herself in harmony with everyone, noticing talents and imperfections proximately with comforting sweetness and encouraging patience. In a short time, Bartholomew School became the center of attraction to the youth of the place and those around. With tremendous charism as a leader, she transformed Lovere and brought life in the parish. Her life as a young maiden was filled with buzzing spiritual and charitable activities. Bartholomew had many friends. She kept her friendships alive through regular correspondence. She wrote hundreds of letters, and her charity knew no bounds.
Bartholomew grew in the desire to become a saint and said to herself, "I resolve to become a saint, a great saint and a saint soon." She sat down to practice with vigor the method of life. Her two closest collaborators were Caterina Gerosa and Don Angelo Bosio, were also from Lovere. Caterina Gerosa, the firstborn of Gerosa's lineage, hailed from a very wealthy business family that traded in leather. Bartholomew met Caterina Gerosa, 23 years older than herself. Both were members of the pious associations in the town of Lovere and known each other for quite some time. Caterina had started in her own house oratorio, and a hospital was built with the donations from Gerosa's family, and both of them cooperated in social welfare activities. Even though their style of working was different, both, urged by passion for charity, blended together to do good. Caterina, who had financial resources and compassionate heart, foresaw the needs and helped in a hidden way. On the other hand, dynamic and vivacious Bartholomew, a born leader and a highly intelligent person, used her creative powers and youthful enthusiasm in organizing initiatives and promoted on a wide range. Bartholomew revealed to Caterina her idea of the new undertaking of starting an institute, but it seemed too vast to Gerosa. When everything seemed to be clear, unexpectedly Bartholomew had to face many obstacles and trials: the property disputes of Gerosa's family, the transfer of Don Bosio, and the difficulties with the municipality. Bartholomew overcame them all with trust in God and strong determination. Don Bosio procured a copy of the rules from the Daughters of Charity of St. Vincent de Paul. Bartholomew finally wrote down the plan of the new institute on 26th April 1831 and handed over to Don Angelo Bosio, our spiritual director. Bartholomew, together with Caterina, purchased an old private house of Gaia's family estate, which was very close to the hospital, and with a heavy heart Bartholomew said goodbye to her beloved mother and her sister Camilla, and both Bartholomew and Gerosa entered Casa Gaia on November 21st, 1832. On that prophetical morning of November 21st, 1832, Bartholomew and Caterina Gerosa, who took the name of Vincenza Gerosa, reached the church of St. Giorgio in Lovere. After the Eucharistic celebration, Don Borbolio and Don Bosio walked to Casa Gaia, where both Bartholomew Capitanio and Vincenza Gerosa knelt before the picture of Our Lady of Sorrows, placed between two lighted candles, made a total self-offering of themselves to God through the hands of Mary on the feast of the presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary. Thus, the Institute of the Sisters of Charity came into being on November 21st, 1832 in Lovere as the initiative of Saint Bartholomew with the cooperation of Caterina Gerosa and Don Angelo Bosio. At the age of 26 years and within 9 months of starting the institute, Bartholomew left for God's abode on 26th July 1833, like an angel crowned with roses, burning herself totally in the service of the neighbor. On the evening of 27th July was the funeral. The church was overcrowded with the girls of the oratories and of the associations to which Bartholomew had given life. Several government authorities, many people from all over Lovere, and the priests from the neighboring villages were present for the funeral. The coffin was shouldered by her friends and advanced with great difficulty between two rows of the crowd. After Bartholomew's death, people said, "That is the end of the institute. What is born, marked by God, never dies." Vincenza Gerosa thought of returning to her home following the death of Bartolomeo, but Don Bosio intervened and said to her, "Continuing the institute is the will of God." So Vincenza Gerosa obeyed Don Angelo Bosio, trusting in God, and carried on, supported by him, the charism of Bartolomeo and transmitted it with humility. In 1833, when Bartolomeo left to heaven, the number of sisters were 3 in the first community. And when Gerosa died in 1847, the institute had 156 sisters and 25 communities and rose to 55 communities by 1856, and took up several apostolic activities in schools, military and other hospitals, and homes for girls in moral danger. Both Bartolomeo and Vincenza were declared saints by Pope Pius X on 18th May 1950. The small and humble story of Vijay Marie Hospital and Educational Society and Holy Mary High School too were born in the heart and vision of Saint Bartolomeo, where she held the sick and the young very dear to her heart. Bartolomeo's large heart embraced the entire world as she lived the wide and diverse dimensions of charity. Our institutions too have been the heartbeat of countless stories and sacred grounds where God's presence is tangibly experienced by numerous people. The legacy of Bartolomeo lives on through the Institute of the Sisters of Charity, spreading the flame of love all over the world.